So on RC cars, the gear coming out of the motor is the pinion gear, and then attached to that, a spur gear. And between those, it's called the gear mesh, or how tightly the gears are or close together, and this can be pretty tough to set. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how you should be setting your gear mesh. So out there's a lot of different recommendations on how you can do this, but I would say the most popular one is to put a strip of paper in between the spur gear and the pinion gear, and if it rips or tears the paper, that means it's too tight. But if it doesn't, well then it's good. But this doesn't really work because there's a lot of different types of paper. Like if you have grid paper or notebook paper or construction paper, these are all different thicknesses and have different tolerances, so it would be different if you use a different type of paper. So this can't really be a universal match for everything. But there's a different, much simpler way, I guess, to really do it, as long as you're able to listen. So let's go ahead and get over to the workbench and show you how to do that. Okay, so on my Traxxas Slash here, it is a two-wheel drive system, so this is at the back of the car, but that doesn't really matter. So what we're going to be looking at is the pinion gear and how tight it is up to the spur gear. So the pinion gear is typically attached to your motor. As you can see here, I have these two screws that I can loosen, but as you can see here now, the motor can move back and forth to set your gear mesh. Now, some cars, like this one, will come with special spacer blocks so that the gear mesh is fixed and it should stay in the same spot. But when I upgraded to the 3S system on my car, I took that out so that I can manually adjust it. So as you can probably imagine, this would be way too loose of a gear mesh and not even touching. So then let's go ahead and move this up just so that they're touching just barely, and then tighten up this screw. So as you can see here, they're just barely touching, and as you can see here, the spur gear is actually slipping on there. And if they're way too loose like this, as you can see there, if your motor is spinning at high RPMs, it can be slipping, and because the pinion is metal but the spur gear is plastic, it could chip the teeth on here, and then you would need a new spur gear, which wouldn't be very great. So as you can imagine, you don't want a loose gear mesh. So let's go ahead and make a gear mesh that is too tight to see what that would look like. Okay, so this is a gear mesh that is way too tight. So as you can see here, there's no movement in between these, and with a gear mesh that is too tight, it can just be tough for the motor to spin the spur gear and then the differential, because there is so much pressure on here that it just is pushing on the gears and does not help it at all. So what you want to do for this method is unscrew your loosening screw so that you can adjust it, and then all that you want to do is hold the pinion gear in place and then move the spur gear. So this is a gear mesh that's too tight, so as you can hear, there's no sound, right? No sound. But then here's a gear mesh that's way too loose, so you can hear that there's a lot of movement in there. So if I move this to about right there, what we're going for is to hear that there's space in between the gears, but we can't really see it move very much. And that would be about right here, because you can see that the gears aren't really moving, but you can hear that there is space in between them. So if we tighten up our screws, that would be a good gear mesh. So this is why you don't want to just use a sheet of paper, because this is the correct method and the way that you should probably be doing it. And this will work on cars that are four-wheel drive as well. The spur gear and pinion gear, though, like the motor, will be in a different spot. So just keep that in mind, but the concept is the exact same. So if you want to see any other videos, go ahead and click here. So I'll see you in the next one.